I'm here with a tutorial video for Gateway Peninsula Church. This is a church we've just done a recent installation using the Heath Q16 board. So I'd like to introduce you to that, and I encourage you all that are volunteering for this church. You've been given a great responsibility and a privilege to serve God in the area of the audio and visual ministry. Okay, we're at the back of the board in the audio booth here. And in order to turn this mixer on, we're going to have to reach to the back here. On the left side, there is a little button that's called power, and I'll show you that real quickly. And if you reach to the back, you'll notice the power button's right here. I simply turn it on. We are using the Heath Q16 board, and once we've turned it on, I want to show you a couple important things here on navigating the board. First, you'll notice that we have 16 faders and a master fader, and our section up here includes our preamp, EQ, gate compression, and a window that will be our navigation screen. Our board here is a 16-channel input, but don't let that fool you. It actually disguises itself as a 22-channel input, 16 channels here, and then we have 3 stereo inputs that are accessible from the back, or they're also accessible from this front drive, which is our Q drive, which is also ST3 input. Let's look at this board and how it works. Each channel here is represented up here. So whatever you have here is repeated 16 times, and whatever you have here corresponds to each channel. So let's look how to navigate through this. If we want to select a channel, we simply hit the select button. A light that is selected green will show us that we have selected it. You'll notice it'll change dynamically through here. Let's select channel 1, and we'll notice that an EQ has already been set for that. But let's look at the different tabs. This is a touch screen. So the first one here we have here will show us just general information about the input. It's also been named. It also gives us the gain value. If we need to add phantom power, we can simply do it by touching and holding it. Come on. And it's now been selected, phantom power. But right now we don't need to have that. It also gives us a pad control if we want to bring down some of that information. If we click the second tab, that shows us our gate settings. The third tab is our EQ settings, and we see a visual representation here. And last one is our compressor settings. So what you see over here can physically be touched and manipulated on the screen here, or if you're a hands-on person, all the stuff that is available here can be accessed through here. Here is our preamp, EQ, gate, and compression. Those same things that we have there. Now this set of parameters, again, is duplicated for each channel. So if I want to adjust channel 2, you'll notice channel 2 has been selected, and I have the same options for all channels. As I keep selecting them, you'll notice channel 15 and 16 are pastor and our wireless mic, and there's already some EQ settings there. But let's go and look at our faders. This will show us a meter of our things, and if we want to see an individual level coming through a channel, we will press the PAFL button, which will show us the signal that's coming in there. It's very helpful when we're setting gain. We also have our mute buttons if we want to turn off certain channels. We also have a master mute button and a master select. When I select this, you'll notice the window has changed, and we can also adjust some of the parameters on our master channel. We also can name it. We have general EQ, EQ in that we can use with faders, and a general compression. Let's unmute all of these. Over here we have some soft keys. We'll get in that later. We also have our mix select. We have 2 FX channels and different mixes that we can send. Let's look over here and let's select channel 1. I wanted to show you a couple things. We are in the processing mode, but I can switch to the routing mode, which will allow me to do some adjustments to pre and post EQ, mix sends, effect sends, and some group assignments. Next, we have the home button, which is very helpful for master and global settings. We have our users. In the future, we may create accounts that will allow you to log in as an admin or an individual user. We can see all the meters at once if we have stuff going. We also have a real-time analyzer, and the last tab allows us to access our Q drive. Our Q drive is simply a USB drive that is connected to the Allen Heath Q16, which we can record to, and we can play back audio. It records to WAV files, 48 kilohertz, I believe. Pretty standard audio, but it can also do multi-track recordings, and we access that through there. Next, we have our FX tab. This machine can run 4 effects simultaneously, and we also have scenes. Later we'll get into what that means, and our setup button. We will install later a talkback button, which is a microphone which we hold in our hand. We press this and we can communicate back and forth to the individuals on stage. So that is our mixing board, a general overview, and I want to talk about using stereo channels 1, 2, and 3. So I brought my iPod with me, and this is probably a common thing we'll be doing on a Sunday morning. I'm going to bring up my iTunes here. Let's see. And I'm going to play this right now. So that is a sound, and we're going to be using this right here. We have 2 special cables that I want to introduce you to, and that is ST1 and ST2. You'll notice that we have physically connected to the back. ST1 is this one, and ST2 is this one. And so these are our 1/8 mini plug stereo inputs. And so I'm going to go ahead and put stereo 1 into my iPad. Make sure my volume is up, I like to put my volume at least 80%. And what I'd like to do is show you how we can play some music here. We're not going to hear anything, but we're going to just simply watch the meters and stuff. So in order to access stereo 1, we're going to have to use a button player called layers. Our layer button is a way to switch between channel 1 through 16, or if I hit layers, I will now be accessing this alternative menu here. This is where you find stereo 1. So channel 1 and stereo 1 share the same fader, and this would be a tricky thing that you'll have to get used to, is knowing and watching these 2 lights. If it's green right here, I'm using channel 1 and adjusting channel 1. If I press layers, I'm now adjusting stereo input 1. So let me select that here, and you'll notice over here, again, when I switch it, channel 1, when I switch to layers and I hit select, I've now gone to stereo 2. So let's talk about setting a gain. Pretend we're going to be on a Sunday morning. The pastor has asked us to put some background music. So let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my settings are down to 0. So let me just go ahead. Let's look at our preamp here. As you'll notice, as I adjust this, you should be seeing the volume change right here. So I'm going to crank it all the way down to negative 24 dB. And I'm going to turn on my EQ. You notice I'm playing around. You should see that window right here adjusting. And so I'm just going to make it flat right now. And that's good enough. Our gate is engaged. I can turn it off and on, and I can also use a compressor. So right now I'm just going to let everything be flat. And what I want to do is learn how to adjust gain. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to play that song. And I have selected stereo 1. It's selected. My iPad is playing. The volume is up. Okay, one thing I want you to notice, you'll hear the music kind of loud. Let me bring it down a little bit. You'll see this is the level of stuff that's coming in. And so I want to make sure that, again, that my iPad is set to about 80%. There we go. Looking at the gain, I want this gain right here to be hitting between 20 and 0 dB. So I'm going to adjust my preamp here. That's a good solid signal there, right? I'm not hitting 0 dB. I'm going to show you what happens when I, when I go overboard. You'll notice I'm getting a peak signal that's telling me you're going too loud, buddy. So we want our gain to be adjusted right about hitting between, oh, on this meter it says 10 and 0 dB. That's a good strong signal. That gives me plenty of room later on to really have a strong signal. So that's gain staging and setting that. I'm going to bring down our master and leave our stereo 1. That looks good. Now let's play a little bit of it. Let's go to our EQ. For our EQ, we can. I'm going to turn it on over here. I can cut some bass. I got a lot of low end coming through. These things are also sweepable, which means I can move that parameter, and the width is our Q value. Okay. I want to show you an alternative way how to do that. So let's go back to stereo channel 1. I'm going to cut everything down. I'm going to get our EQs, make it flat again. Because this is using the knobs, because some people are knob people, they like to use knobs. Some people don't, so I'll show you how to do the same thing we did here. Simply using the touch screen. I'm going to hit ST1, and I'm going to hit trim. And once this button is connected yellow, I can use this button right here. This doubles as the same preamp button because it's selected. Now I can go to my EQ, and I'm going to say I want to mess around with the low end. I'm going to press that there. Using that same knob, I can crank some of the low ends. I can change the frequencies I'm adjusting simply by touching it. Let's turn on the compressor, and I can say what's my threshold. So a lot of that is accessible through the same way, using the touch screen or simply using the buttons. You'll have to figure out what works for you as an individual. So that's setting the gain, and once you do that, you're able to bring this up to full volume. And let's test it again. Let's make sure our gain is loud enough here. Right there. And then I can bring this fader in as much as I need to hear in the morning. That's very important again. So let's look at another video coming up on how to do some more adjustments. Hi, this is Marlon. We're back with another tutorial. I want to review how to set the proper gain for an individual channel. We saw a little bit how to do that with an audio source such as an iPad or a CD. Let's do it with a microphone, because that's what we're going to be using a lot with voices. So I have an SM58. I've plugged it into the back of the mixer here. We've selected channel 8 here, and let's go ahead and I'm going to cut my preamp all the way down, turn off my EQ, turn off my gate. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do is, if you're an audio engineer, you're going to have the person hold the mic, again 2 to 3 inches, and as I'm speaking, I want you to notice over here our gain. We see our gate working, but we don't see anything happening here. Again, our gain is down to -5 dB. I'm gonna adjust the gain right now. Check 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. You hear me talking, and I'm adjusting the gain more and more because I'm looking right here because I want my voice to hit between 10 and 0 dB. Now, most people when they're testing a mic, they may be talking nice and soft, so encourage them to speak at the volume that they would normally speak at. So 1 2 2, check 2 2 2 2, ha ha. Great. Again, this would be too much. You see how I'm distorting? I'm getting these lights to remind me too much. Bring that gain down here. 1 2 2, check check 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 2. Now you'll notice I'm not even doing anything here. Nobody is listening to this. I can even have the faders all the way down. The most important part about setting the proper gain is that if you don't do that, you will introduce a lot of noise. You may encounter a lot of more feedback because you're trying to push things more and more. You're not getting enough volume. It's better to have a strong signal than to have a weak signal. If you have a strong signal, it's always easier to push back. If you have a weak signal, you don't have as much to push forward. So again, this is a strong signal. You'll notice about 30 dB of gain. Now let's bring up our master volume. And again, we're selected over here. Now I'm going to be talking in the mic, and you should hear my voice. 1, 2, 2, 2, 2. 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2. I'm going to mute it. And you'll notice that there's mute button is on. There still is a strong signal over here, but nothing's coming out. So let's go ahead and bring the volume down. You'll notice that mute will also work if I press mute on the mains. Okay? You still have a signal coming here, but now it's no longer coming through the mains. So that is how to set up the proper gain for a microphone. And once you set it up, let me show you a really neat thing, because you may have about, say, 3 of these microphones. And for example, we have our microphone set up on channel 8 and channel 9 and channel 10. We have similar singers. So this is what we can do. If we're in our processing mode, I've selected channel 8. If I press copy and I press 8, I've actually copied all the settings of that. Hit our paste button and I paste it to 9 and I paste it to 10. All of these should have similar EQ settings on them. Okay, very fun to have that. Let's just go back to channel 8. Let's turn on our EQ. I want to just mess around with it. We're not going to hear it right now. I got some stuff activated there. We'll put on our high pass, sorry. All right, so let's copy this setting. Well, let's look at this one. Channel 9 and channel 10, no EQ, but channel 8 does. I'm going to copy channel 8, paste it to 9 and to 10. Now when I press channel 9 and 10, you notice they have the same settings. Very, very valuable for quick setup. If you're using similar microphones, you can set one up and then copy and paste that. But I do encourage you again to always make sure that you have the gain properly set. And if you look at what we have there, you're going to be able to find some pretty averages that the gain at 30 dB is probably what you're going to be working with a lot with vocals. But every mic's different. So in case this church happens to use, this is a dynamic microphone, which does not require phantom power. But there may be a time where you do have a mic that requires phantom power. Again, you would simply select that channel, press and hold it, press and hold. There you go. And you'll notice that the red light has come on. It says you are using that. Press and hold it, turn it off. Okay, let's talk about scenes. Scenes, let's go to one right now. If you hit the scenes button and you click the one that you have main service and you hit recall, you'll notice that we've already preset something for services. And what I've chosen to do here, I'm not sure what we're going to be using in the future, but right now I've set up 6 microphones. For 1 through 6 might be vocalists. Right now we don't have any instruments, but on channel 15 and 16, channel 15, let me go to processing. Channel 15 is our wireless mic, and channel 16 is Pastor John's microphone. So once we go back to home button, you hit home, user, let's go to scenes, sorry. You hit the main service, you hit recall, yes. So this is a good way to start your Sunday morning. When you turn it on, make sure your scenes are set to main service 1. And you'll notice that if you turn this on, you should have some volume in these microphones and your main's not loud. And that's kind of a good way. Let's go ahead and move this up a little bit. And let's bring this down. Because I want to make an adjustment to this. So I've made some adjustments here. Now I'm going to hit main service and I want to store it. We're going to override it. There it goes, yes. So whenever we recall this scene now, it's going to show us, again, this is down, this is here. This is very helpful because later on we might have other people that want to use it and maybe they only need 1 mic. So let's create a simple new service for them. Let's make the adjustments. They say they're only going to use 1 wireless mic right about there. And we'll go ahead and mute all those and mute that one. And we'll select that one, and we're going to say store, and we're going to leave it as name. We can rename it. Let's name it one mic setup. All right, and I hit OK, and I want to store that. It says yes, store it. All right, so now we have two setups here. Let's go to main service. Let's recall that one. Recall it. You notice things change. Again, these were opened up. When we go to the one mic setup, we'll hit recall. And the faders remember all that volume. So this is a really good way to create multiple setups for different situations. But right now, again, main service is what we're going to use. Recall. There you go. So that is scenes. Let's go back to processing. Welcome back. Let's talk about running a service like on a Sunday morning. We've turned on our mixer. We go to our scenes. We recall the main service. And everything is happy. Let's go to our processing. On this main service, we're going to notice that we have channel 15 is a wireless handheld. Pastor John is on 16. And when we hit the layers button, we have some audio coming in on stereo 1. So let's do this. Pretend you've come early. Let's test our music here first. I'm just going to go ahead and bring our volume down because I want to check the volume and the gain of stereo 1. So I've selected it, stereo 1, selected it. I'm going to play my music real quickly here. And you'll notice my gain setting. I'm going to just adjust it a little bit. Let me see. Right about there is loud enough. And if I hit the PFA-L button for this channel, you'll notice that this is the meter reading. If that's too hard to see, again, you can press the PFA-L button to adjust that as well. So hitting around -6 to 0 dB is kind of where you want to be. Okay, I haven't done an EQ. Let's turn off our EQ. Let's put our up back here. So we have the audio set for stereo 1, 3. They've given us the song list. There's going to be 3 songs. And nobody's going to be leading the music. We're just going to kind of do it like that. So what we would do, let's go to channel, our mixer. What I would do is I would go ahead and mute these. Since Pastor John's not going to speak, I'm going to go ahead and leave his microphone on mute until he's ready to speak, and I'm going to be watching him. And for the wireless, I'm going to maybe put it kind of low here. And let's go to our thing here. All right, so we have worship going on. We got the music, right? We're playing it. You'll have to be able to switch between these two. And that's the kind of tricky thing here. So for example, you're listening to the music and it's getting kind of, it's too loud, so you have to bring the volume down. But then now somebody wants to speak or say something, you will be adjusting this. Okay? We want more music. We want less singer. You'll have to be making those adjustments here. I'm going to turn that down. Okay, so let's pretend the music, the worship part is over. I'm going to go ahead and hit mute because we're done with that. Let's go back to our 2 microphones. We have the person that is number 15 and they're giving announcements. And we know Pastor John's going to come up and get ready to speak. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and unmute his button. I'm going to keep this low here. It's just the way I like to do it. I like to ride my faders, basically. I know he's ready to speak, and I'm just going to kind of get it ready because sometimes, you know, there's movement and sounds that we don't need. But when he's ready to speak, I'm already unmuted it, and I can fade in nice and whatever his volume needs here. I can go ahead and mute this microphone if I need to. No one's using it, so you can mute it, or you can just cut it down like this. Depends how you like to work. I personally like to use a combination of those. But for me, visually, I like to see some stuff. I'll leave it a little bit open just in case someone picks it up and does something. I can quickly grab it. It's easier for me to grab a fader than to play with a mute button. That's just me. So at the end of the service, Pastor John says his final amen. We can cut his volume or mute it. And maybe we have to go back to the music. Let's unmute it. And there's our fader. So that's a real simple way how we might have to run on a Sunday morning. Again, ST1 doing, or ST2 possibly, being our audio inputs. and switching to the channels where we can adjust our mics for 15 and 16. Let's talk about shutting down and turning this thing off. The wonderful thing about the Allen Heath Q16 board is typically in the past, whenever you've had a mixer and an amplified speaker setup, mixer goes first to be on, then you turn on the speakers with the amplifier. And to shut down, you shut off the speakers and the amplifier first, then you go to the mixer. Thankfully, with the Allen Heath Q16 system, you can kind of forget that sometimes. It's always a good rule to do that. But right now, the main speakers are on, the amplifiers are on, and I'm going to turn on the board here. I'm going to press a button. It's going to boot up here. I'm going to go to my scenes, and I'm going to hit main service, recall, yes, and good. That's just to make sure that I've set that. Now pretend we've done a morning service. Let's discuss a typical morning service that we would have here. We're going to have on the channels inputs, we have a wireless mic and Pastor John. So pretend it's the worship service. If we hit layers, we're going to go to ST1 is going to be our music, right? Let's go back to this. So we know that Pastor John is going to, maybe he doesn't open up. I'm not sure how your service goes, but we're going to go ahead and mute his mic. We can either mute it or bring it down. I kind of like to do a little bit of both. And we have our announcements. So someone says, welcome, they're talking, and we want to get ready for the music. So we hit to ST3, we make sure it's unmuted. We go ahead and select it if we want to. And let's go ahead and play some music here. Okay, some heavy rock music for worship morning. And now the leader is going to sing, so make sure you press the other channel, and we can adjust the volume right here that the person is using the wireless mic. Maybe we want to, do some EQ changes with their voices. Okay. And let's pretend now that we've already finished our worship time. Pastor John's going to get ready. So we switch to ST1. We'll fade out the music here. We'll go back to channels 1 through 6, and we're going to mute the wireless, and it's time for Pastor John. I'm going to leave it on mute, then I'm going to fade him in if I need to as he's speaking and he gives the message. So during the message time, you're probably not going to be doing much. He probably is not going to be screaming or running around, but if you do have issues, again, you can just watch that. Maybe it's now the end of the service, the final benediction. Someone's going to come up and do some announcements. If Pastor John is not actively speaking, I encourage you to mute him. Mute him. And then I'm going to unmute this one. Some person's going to give some announcements. We've done that. And at the end of the service, maybe we're going to play some music. So let's get our music ready. I'm going to go ahead and fade this person out. I can hit mute, go to layers, ST1. I've already got my music played. Fade it in. End of the service, everybody's gone. I'm going to go ahead and fade it out. That was a great service. Now let's talk about what you do at the end of the service. We want to shut this thing down. Now you should never power this thing off. You should shut it down. Let me show you how to shut down. If you hit the home button, and then make sure you hit the home tab, there is a button called shut down. You click it once. You want to confirm it, hit yes. And this machine now shuts itself off. As I mentioned, I usually never shut down a mixer without first shutting off the main speakers, but because we're using this board, it allows us to do that. So I shut down, then I go ahead and press this button. If you just press the button in the back and you forget to shut down and you forget to turn off your powered speakers, you will pop and will potentially damage the speakers. So again, use the shutdown mode in order to do that. I just rebooted it. Scenes, recall, yes. Awesome. That is a simple way to run a Sunday morning service. All right, welcome back. Let's talk about some advanced routing features. This mixer works in conjunction with a digital snake. Now, a snake is basically a connection from the inputs and the outputs of the back of this mixer, and we can remotely put it somewhere else. So right now, the Allen Heath Q16 has a digital snake that runs at the front of the church. underneath the communion table where we plug in mics physically, and then it's sent over here via Cat5 or Cat6 cable to over here. So right now, let's talk about the setup. I'm going to go to our home, processing. I'm going to select channel 1, and I want you to see something. If I hit the function button right here, you're going to see a setting here. We have our inputs 1 through 16, and then we have our stereo inputs, stereo 1, stereo 2, stereo 3. Now some of these are labeled differently in color: yellow, red, and blue. Let's start with the blue. Our ST3, stereo input 3, is dedicated to our Q drive, and so that's what this is here. Stereo 2 and stereo 1 are colored red for they, and 16 and 15, and their label red is also labeled local. Local means that it's physically connected to the back of this board. Again, if you look at our stereo 2 and stereo 3, it's basically a cable that's connected right here. But all the other channels 1 through 14 are yellow, and they are labeled main or DSnake, and the digital snake is what's over there. So for instance, if we ever have to change that, again, let's go to our turn off our function. You would go to, in your processing mode, hit the function button, and for example, say we wanted to connect a physical microphone in the back here, and on channel 14 we would select channel 14, and then we can move it to local, DSnake, or USB. Again, that might be using Q drive. Most likely we're just going to set it to local or DSnake. And once you did that, that's it. Again, I'm going to turn it off and on. You'll notice that it's been changed. Oh, let's change that one here. That should be DSnake. There you go. And it's done. Now, if that's a setting that you want to keep, you've changed things, go back to scenes. And that's our main service. And let's hit store. And I say, yes, I want to store that. So now when I come on a Sunday morning, that main service is now set up to have 14, 15, and 16 to be all locally connected here. So that's a very important thing. If you've changed the setup, you may need to go into, again, to processing, hit the function button, and you'll see what's connected red in the back to locally here, or yellow for the DSnake.